Welcome to Chaotic Harmony. My name is John.
This is Crystal.
I'm Mark.
I'm Zoe.
We talk about the joys and the challenges of teaching music in the elementary school classroom. We share inspiration, we share struggles, we brainstorm solutions. We would love to have you join us.
And today we're going to be talking about growing pains within a music program. And so as educators, we are constantly asked to do things that we might not be particularly trained to do, but we're asked to do it and to do it well.
Yes.
I'm sure you've all experienced this at some point in your career.
Oh, yes.
So my first question for y'all is just, let's get a base kind of foundation. And what are the areas that you feel comfortable, like you're trained in, like those are areas that you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can start. So
Sure.
I got my undergraduate in double bass performance. So I do feel like I can teach a bass lesson fairly easily, I guess, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Excellent. Nice. I feel like, so I, even despite the fact that I started on the flute, in college, I picked up, well, actually, no, my senior year of high school, I indulged myself in choir, and I kind of just joined the dark side, leaving band behind and just went towards choir. And since then, I've very much been, Crystal's just showing the whole drawing, and yes, I've been really into, I can do choir, I can teach choir, especially at an elementary level. Where you do a mixture of, sometimes you just got to teach by rote, but sometimes you work on teaching music theory, because as a music composition major, you have to know a good amount of theory. So I feel like choir has grown to be my forte, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm really comfortable teaching voice because that's my specialty. I'm pretty confident I could take any group of kids anywhere and give them a half-hour voice lesson, you know. And because of the number of years that I spent working with really small children, I feel like I could totally riff a lesson with little kids or Montefiore special ed. Like, I could do half an hour without looking at any material, especially if I have a guitar and a scarf.
Guitar scarf. You should put a scarf on your guitar.
Guitar?
Oh.
Guitar.
I know for me, brass instruments were kind of where I felt most comfortable teaching. I've been playing trumpet for many years, and so I picked up trombone along the way, and I can teach French horn at an elementary level as well. But just that was kind of my wheelhouse, you know, kind of moving forward. Now that we've kind of established that base around us, and I'm curious as to, in your teaching career, it could have been within the last year or within the last few years, what is something that you've been asked to do or to have ready that you've had little to no experience doing?
Crystal.
Miss Crystal.
Yeah, teach strings. Haha. Yeah, you're going to teach strings. Oh, really? Am I? Yeah, I think I touched a string instrument for a semester in strings methods 12 years ago.
Nice.
And had to dust that textbook off in order to make it happen. Also, Mimi Zweig saved my rear end. This year, she has a bunch of beginning strings lessons on YouTube, and she is amazing. And got me through my first month as a strings teacher.
I didn't know she was on YouTube.
Yeah.
I gotta find that now. Okay.
Good stuff.
Yes. I was asked to do a choir last year, but it's turned out to be like my joy.
Nice.
So I love that now. Oh gosh, and recorders. In Orff, it's like, you know, one of the kind of crux.
Yeah, it's one of the pillars of the religion.
Of Orff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
You mean you weren't excited to teach hot cross buns?
Still haven't taught it, in fact.
I feel like for me, it's since I went from my goal initially was to teach at a collegiate level, then I went to high school and now down to elementary. I feel like everything I've taught every year has been something new I've had to tackle. Starting with the teaching safety patrol, but that's not for music education. Sometimes you just got to do different things to be a music educator, though, even doing a safety patrol. But beyond that, I started with band. I started with flute. And so when I was presented what I wanted to do for the VH1 Save Music, which ensemble I wanted to pick up, I decided band would not just be good for the culture of our school. I mentioned in an earlier episode that my school is very sports heavy, so I thought, band would be great to exemplify or add on to it. But also, since I have had a band background, been playing flute since 7th grade, I thought it'd be okay. Thing is, though, when you learn flute, that transfers to nothing. So I had to learn.
That's true.
It is true. The embouchure is very different. And so, like, I had to learn the clarinet, had to learn the... you pretty much are using the same amount of air as a tuba. But learn the clarinet, all the reed instruments, all the brass instruments. It's been a slow process, but it's been something I've had to learn. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the recorder. Even though I played recorder growing, 6th grade, maybe something, I don't know when. It's different teaching it. How do you so every single thing I've had to teach, be it recorder, band, it's like always been something, every year something new I have to teach. I feel like I have to learn how to teach it.
Yeah.
Because also it's not just enough to have the knowledge of playing it. It's the knowledge of then showing it to the class.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. For those of you who don't know, who might not have played flute, you lose about half your air when you play flute. And so half of the air goes to the instrument and kind of making those vibrations, and the other half just goes into the universe.
Or the person in front of you.
Or the person in front of you. So my question for you guys, follow-up, is when you learned that you had to teach this thing, whether it be recorder, whether it be strings, whether it be other band instruments, what was kind of your thought process, and what did you immediately do to kind of prepare to teach these students who have no training but kind of look to you as you have, like, you know all the answers. So like what were the steps that you took to prepare yourself to teach this relatively new or brand new thing?
I'm gonna be vulnerable for a second.
Please.
Oftentimes, with the very first time, I shot from the hip. I tried things out, thinking that, okay, maybe I can adapt to the situation. And then I realized, okay, I know this much, I don't know this much. And then I tried to find a resource. For example, teaching clarinet, I understood the basics, but then I realized, okay, no, I need to learn how to be good at this myself, not just understand the basics. So fortunately, one of my roommates, he plays both clarinet and trombone, and boom, boom, got that out of the way. So I've been learning through him. But ultimately it started out, okay, it's a testing of how much do I know. And fortunately, that also means that the kids get a certain level of education before I then understand how much I know, to then find out resources to bolster that up.
Sure.
I know with the recorders, I just asked you on Twitter. I think I just was like, how do I teach recorder? And then and that was very helpful. Thank you, John. I did the blowing bubbles and different things that you can do before they even have a recorder in their hands. And Mark, you helped me out with the Durs, and thank you for that.
Can you explain to those people who might not know what a dirter is?
Dirter.
Dirter.
Yeah, so David Thaxton introduced us to this teaching tool called a dirter, where you cut down a PVC pipe and then you drill holes to an approximate, I don't know,
finger spacing.
Finger spacing, thank you, to a recorder, but minus the head joint, and so there's no air involved. It's just practicing the fingering.
Is there an etymology behind dirter? Do we know what dirter comes from? I'm just curious.
David Thaxton's brain.
Okay. Does that surprise me?
It's a wonderful thing. I did. I like I said, I dusted off my textbook, and I definitely did some YouTube searching, and I also leaned a lot on the strings players. That we have some really fabulously trained strings players, like this amazing person sitting next to me right here, and Zoe and Lori Casimiro really saved me that first year, especially. It was like any question I had, I knew that I could ask it and get a non-judgmental, very helpful answer the first year. And I was so nervous about teaching things like bow holds and how to hold your instrument. I was just so terrified that my kids were going to get to middle school and their teachers would be like, "Who was your teacher?" And she didn't know anything. And the fortunate thing is that kids come not knowing anything, and so you can, if you stay one step ahead of them, that's all you need to be. And I'm getting there myself. Every chance I get to learn alongside the kids with like Opus Project, I try to crash and play with them, but I'm a beginning player myself. I'm also really honest with them, and I'll tell them that. I'll say, hey, my training is in voice and in alto saxophone. It is not in a string instrument, so I'm learning right along with you guys, and I think they appreciate that.
That's good. Okay.
One thing that you said, Crystal, that I appreciate is you saying, like, when they go on to further endeavors in music, where it's like, well, who taught you?
Yeah.
But like, you have that goal, like, this student or these students are going to be continuing in music, and so like, it's just not even a thought process. Like, it's not even a thought that they're not going to continue music, but rather they're going to be continuing music, and I want to make sure that I lay this, this foundation, or I lay this, these beginning steps for them where they're comfortable and they know what they're doing. So when they get to that next level, that teacher can then continue to mold them into better musicians
and not have to undo mistakes.
Right.
So that's been a big one. Charlie Wolf is a teacher down here in San Diego too. He does a lot of strings repairs, and so he was in my room helping me because the VH1 instruments came with some corks, and they had to be worked out. We had a lot of sound posts that were falling down, and just did different, brand new string instrument issues, and nothing would stay in tune. My parents came over and helped me tune all 40 instruments for like 2 months every day before the strings stretched. And he spent a good hour with me, giving me some bow hold ideas, exercises, to get them started, because we'd been playing for about 2 months and I was afraid to give them a bow. So yeah, that bow hold is intimidating.
I think the ultimate thing is just being willing to be humble enough to ask.
Yes,
that's the
openness.
key thing. I remember my first year, I just was so like, oh gosh, what's going on? Unfortunately, I ran into the wife of Michael Gray. Emily Gray was working at my alma mater, and then she referred me to her husband, who was working at the same district. And if it wasn't for that, I would never have received the First Steps by John Fire-Robin, which was the first, at least a good foundation for me to then branch off of. And then if I didn't reach out to other people, I wouldn't have. Shooting from the hip is not something I advise. It's something I do. It's not something I should do.
And we all do it.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, we
yeah.
all do it. And you know what? Can we talk for a second about imposter syndrome? Because it's a real thing where we all feel like we should know all the answers, but we actually don't. And it's like this feeling of, just wait till somebody finds out. They'll know what a fraud I am. But it's not a helpful mindset. And whenever we react like, who do they think they are trying to give me advice? That's coming from a place of fear of being found out. And I remember, Dr. Dowling now, at Point Loma, back when he was a high school director, he was working at Point Loma High School. I did some field work with him, and I asked him, he was only a couple of years into teaching, and I asked him, how has it been, taking over, because he took over that program very young. And he said, my first year teaching, I felt like a balloon, and like somebody was going to find the needle, I was just on pins and needles myself, like waiting for it. And he said, and every year I teach, I kind of feel like the balloon's getting filled with sand. And I think of that often, and I feel like that's how I'm feeling these days with my strings program. Like, we've got about 25% sand in there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's such a good point of just that fear of, well, they're going to know that I have no idea what I'm doing. And like, that's a really crippling thing for a teacher.
Yeah.
I think, and just having that constant fear over your head, I'm a fraud. But rather than asking for help or just leaning on just super basic, like if you lay, like, you know what, my band kids can play 5 notes, or my string kids can hold the instrument properly, and that's maybe all they can do.
Yeah.
But isn't that better than having to go back and reteach everything?
Right.
Like, I know for me personally, trumpet's what I started off in 6th grade, and I was able to fake my way until college. Tonguing. I didn't know how to tongue properly, and I faked my way, and so I would use my air to stop and to separate notes and not use my tongue properly. Well, when I got to college, my private teacher saw that real quick and was like, nope, you got to learn how to tongue. And it's something that I continue to have to be super mindful today, even when I'm practicing trumpet, and just making sure like I'm using my tongue. And like, I had to relearn how to play and how to change my embouchure and all these other things that had my teacher been a little bit more aware, or had I just asked for help, I could have saved, myself years or a year of private lessons and focused more on other things.
Yeah, and unhelpful coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and music teachers are asked to do this crazy thing where we take our teaching and put it on stage to be judged in front of an entire community and administration multiple times a year. And I think that a lot of our fear comes from that. It's like, I have to put my kids on stage and they have to perform, and then my teaching is going to be assessed by whatever the kids do.
Not just that, but also you're showcasing this in front of people that understand what a CD music sounds like,
right.
what a product sounds like of an adult who's worked X amount of years and
has digital editing on their side.
Has digital editing, has professional tutoring alongside as well. They don't understand oftentimes they don't understand how the sausage is made. And to showcase that to principals, maybe you have a very understanding principal, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a very supportive admin, maybe you don't. But ultimately, oftentimes they don't understand how it's made, and that's a very scary process. But I also want to place a little caveat. All of us are being vulnerable right now. I do want to, if you don't know who we are, if this is for your first time listening to us, I can say each of these guys are phenomenal teachers who can create not just a good product, but also a great program as well.
Oh yeah, we all have thriving programs.
Yes.
But we struggle, and I want to acknowledge that everybody, even the most successful person, struggles, and it's getting through that struggle and not giving up in the middle of it. And I want to make sure that I end the whole performance, thread on the positive note, because I've decided that the best course of action for my program is to take an informants approach to as many concerts as possible. So instead of just, here is the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and we will play it imperfectly on our violins. First, we will explain to you step by step, this is how we hold it, this is why we do things the way we do, these are the steps that it took to get there, and we lead them through the entire process from beginning to end. These are the skills your children are learning, these are the muscles we're building, this is where we're going. And I have the kids explain it, because again, like I said before in a previous episode, I do as little talking during performances as possible, because parents don't care what I say. The kids care.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great transition into kind of looking at where you were and then not just kind of living in that, but actually learning from that and looking at it as a positive. Like for me personally, this last year, I directed a musical. First time in my life. Never done any musical theater. Never done anything in that realm before. And looking back on it, there were a lot of mistakes that I made. Just a ton. Like, I didn't schedule enough rehearsals. I didn't use our rehearsal time appropriately. I didn't schedule enough time for blocking. But looking at what ended up happening was that I had a group of about 22 kids. They got on stage. They sang in front of their peers. They acted minimally, but they acted in front of people, and they put on a musical, and that's great. And so kind of looking at this, because I don't want us ever, even listeners, to get stuck in this thing like, oh, well, I don't know how to do this and I'm terrible at it, so I'm just going to live in this kind of negative feeling about whatever my situation is. But what have you learned from that? So whether it's learning how to teach other band instruments or record or strings, using those growing pains in a way, how can you spin that into positive? How can you look at it positively? And then just to kind of tack on to that, how can you use what you've learned and implemented that going forward? Because you're never going to teach something perfectly. There's always a different way to teach it. But how can you use what you've learned and the mistakes that you made to improve your craft, improve and improve, students?
Yeah. So action steps.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Well, I definitely think you got to not do it alone ever. And that is the common theme of this podcast. That's why we're together right now. We lean on each other a lot. We get together a lot, and we have scheduled monthly professional development with our district, and I'm grateful for it. But we get together a lot more than just that. We get together on random Saturdays. We have ORF parties. We go to conferences. We get together in each other's music classrooms. We watch each other teach. We unpack the lessons together. And because we have each other, I'm not a fabulous string player, but Ms. Kumagai sure is. Jeez. And so she can help me. And I've been able to, help other people with the ORF process or with getting kids to project their voices. We need each other. So reach out. Yeah, get yourself some music teacher buddies, man.
Yeah, I think something that I've tried to remind myself is the initial goal is not always the final product. and just like being okay with adjusting expectations. Like with the recorders, I had like picked out like 5 songs with BAG that I thought they could learn in one quarter. This is second graders, and they learned half of one. But it's something, I mean, it was testing season. We hit testing season, and they were just, I saw them at the very end of the day, and literally one little one started crying when I passed out the recorder. She said, "I'm so tired, Miss Kumagai. I can't do this today." And then I was like looking for movement and recorder activities, and that's what stuck. We got out hula hoops, and they had to like stand in the hula hoops to show like one person, and one hula hoop is a B, you know.
Yeah. Richard Lawton's really good at that. If you're looking for more. Yeah.
Yes.
And he'll share freely. Shout out to Richard. Yeah. Has a couple of really great ones that I use in my classroom.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think just so I can understand the question you're asking. It's
Absolutely.
like you're asking essentially how do we recap it?
Yeah, so the question just kind of is, what have you learned through this experience and through this time of not knowing? And like, how have you implemented what you've learned into kind of changing your teaching style so that as you move forward, your future students receive kind of a more polished and more refined version? What
Crystal and Zoe have shared is very on point. I want to add on, write things down.
Yeah,
that is so important. The fact I see 500 kids in a week. And it's easy for me to, okay, I'm done with this class. Now I have to get ready for the next class. But if I don't have time to actually jot down my notes, I will forget what is to come. I will forget the self-reflection. Exactly. But not just that, but also like the self-reflection of how we can improve. Also, one thing that I didn't know this year was I decided to, I've never worked with strings ever. But for a piece we were doing, I got some alumni to create a string quartet. And I was learning on the spot. So the first day, definitely I was shooting from the hip. But I needed to write down the parts. I needed to write down how it was going to happen also. And it might sound like basic teacher etiquette, for lack of a better term. But it's important that when we are in the trenches to remember, hey, I know we got a lot on our plate. Pause. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Write it down.
Write it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we can move on.
Yeah, and then you can access it next year and stop reinventing yourself every single year.
Yes.
Right. This year I actually took the time to really map out my scope and sequence because I feel like my kids are at a skill level now where we're actually grade level appropriate for the skills that they should have. So
congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a long build. Here we are going into year 4 and we're where we ought to be. And I think that as you continue to reach mastery as a teacher yourself or in your program, writing things down so that you can access them again later and share them with other people is really vital. Yeah. And you know what? I feel like I need to say this. I don't believe in trade secrets in teaching. I believe it's open source.
Sure.
I think that every kid everywhere should have access to a high quality education, and I think that we need to share freely. It's something that I really appreciate about our community. It's like and I'm not talking about people who write curriculum or sell stuff on teachers pay teachers. Like if you're sharing resources and fine, get paid for your work, but if a colleague comes to me and needs help, I'm going to give it to them, and I think that we need to be generous with our discoveries and not feel that sense of competition, but to understand that when we work together we only make each other better.
This might go on a small tangent, but it's related. There's this guy named Ivan Illich. He wrote this book on decentralizing education. And one of the things he talks about really is that the structure we have for education is very much that we have a teacher that is kind of like the gatekeeper of education, and that hinders a lot of things. I'm not even going to get too deep, but I think when we start to understand it shouldn't be about the teacher and the students, but rather breaking those walls down. It's like, hey, we're trying to share our learning, and if you can open that up to your coworkers, it's that much easier to opening up with the children, so that no longer is it the teacher to the students, but it's just knowledge flowing back and forth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I was talking with a director of a nonprofit recently, or a manager of a nonprofit, and we were talking kind of just about teachers, and then I told her, like, I might be the only millennial teacher at my school. And just kind of how I approach education is much different than how some of the more senior teachers at my school approach education. And we were just kind of chatting about that. And just the way we were taught. Like, they were taught, like, this is what you teach. You teach this, you teach this, you teach this. You don't teach the arts because you're not trained in that. And we're, and I've stated this in previous episodes, we're partnered with the program out of the Kennedy Center called Turn On Arts, and so we're an arts focused school. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is, like, all teachers throughout the children's learning day is that they get arts and arts based instruction. And so it's just kind of that thought process of, like, this is what we do. Like, we do flow that knowledge between student and teacher, and it's okay as a teacher to not have an answer. Like, it's absolutely okay. And that's just part of growing. And I think if we teach our students through the thought, like, unconsciously, like, well, I have all the answers, you have none of the answers because you're a student, that's super harmful. But rather this rapport and this relationship that we have with students, like, you know what? I don't know where the word friendship comes from. I had that today with one of my students. They asked me, well, where does friendship come from? I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. I don't know. I can look it up and let you know, or you can look it up and let me know.
Yeah.
You know, and just being okay with being vulnerable. And I think that that's what growing pains are just being vulnerable as teachers and as educators. And I think we have a beautiful thing within the music teacher community in Chula Vista, and partially why we're sharing this podcast is to be vulnerable, to be willing to be like, you know what, I didn't do this well. I didn't do my musical well, you know, in comparison to others. But that's okay. Like, my kids had never experienced that before, and so now they have. And
we'll do better next time.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do better next time, and I'll do better next time. And, like, we're learning. And there's no one person that has all the answers in any specific field. And I don't know about you guys, but when I signed up to be a music teacher, I didn't realize that I'd have to be an event planner. That I'd have to be, like, a personal assistant sometimes to certain people. And, like, I'd have to do this and I have to do that. I have to figure out, oh, well, I have to be an organizer. I have to be, you know, I have to plan all these visual things.
Be a secretary.
Right, absolutely.
Counselor.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
you know,
that too.
and there are just so many things so many hats that we wear, especially at Title I schools. And I just think that it's such an important thing to know that it's okay to have growing pains.
Yeah.
And
it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody is.
Right.
Yeah. Some of us are closer than, you know, others, sure, but we're all here to learn from each other.
And I think that some people have strengths in other things that you might not. And you know what?
That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
It's almost as if, like, the harmony we create is from chaos.
Oh.
Like,
Man, that's a beautiful idea.
we should think of how to use chaotic and
In harmony.
but
Sure.
yeah, no. And so kind of with that thought process of thinking, like, you know what, it's okay to maybe fail a little bit. It's
Yeah.
okay to not be perfect in this particular field. Using that, can you think of something that maybe you want to tackle within the next year or two at your site that maybe might be a little bit scary to do now?
Well, and if I can just real quick tag on, I was having a conversation with my principal today, Dr. Beverly Prang. She's wonderful. She's such an incredible advocate. An idea that she wants us to communicate to the kids next year explicitly in art and music is that artists have to do the same thing over and over and over again in order to get to a final product that they're proud of. You know, painters do drafts of lots of different paintings. Composers are always changing their pieces, and it can take a long time to get to an end product. And we don't expect the kids to do something once and have it be perfect. So why do we expect that of ourselves?
Sure.
Yeah. So ideas that we're going to do for next year. I guess that's mine to communicate that and to give myself more grace.
Sure.
Yeah, something that I've been thinking about recently is acknowledging things that I'm doing well, something that I'm good at. And a colleague of mine asked me to just say 3. And I struggled. I was silent, and then I repeated myself, and I was like, oh, I don't do this. I don't say these things out loud. And so I think that's a part of my own reflective process that I want to improve on, and hopefully have that, spread around me. People acknowledging that, you're good at things.
Yeah.
It's not always just like the things that you're not good at that you have to improve on. It's like, okay, you're there.
These are all good points. I think one thing I want to focus on is like, I have a tendency to just constantly try to expand and try to reach out and do other things. I think part of it is also possibly because of a fear that what I'm doing right here is not enough or whatever. And one thing I want to really focus on this next year is digging deep on what we have, digging deep on the ukuleles, on the barred instruments, not trying to do something new, not trying something exciting, but hey, as Crystal is saying, it takes time. And having these kids hone in on those skills, hone in on those skills and just really create art where they're at, no longer just trying to expand to the next thing, but dig deep.
Yeah. Well, that's understandable too, coming from the background we come from, building programs where there was nothing.
Yes.
For so long, the focus of the program was, how do I get instruments?
Yeah.
How do I survive?
Yeah. How do I stake a claim? How do I decorate a room? How do I make it, how do I make music an integral part of the community? I think we're getting there. And so how do we take it deeper? That's a mindset shift. That's important. I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
I think that's super important for us four, and then music teachers in our district and across the country who might be in a similar situation. Whereas, as you said, Crystal, it's like, well, we've introduced it. We have buy-in now. If you've been at your site for a couple years or a year or so, but you feel that you have that buy-in, how do I make it more meaningful instead of just this flash and pizzazz? Like, well, this is what music is. Like, let's celebrate it. But now it's like, okay, well, now that we know, how can we take what we've refined or what we've learned and refine it more? How can we add more musical things to our skills? And I just think that's something that I think that we're always going to have as educators, are these growing pains. But as long as we recognize that this is not a profession that should be done alone. Like, we're not created to do life alone. So why would we be created to do teaching alone, where we're constantly, pouring out our heart and ourselves to all these students? Or if we don't get filled back up between friends and colleagues and whatnot, like, we'll have nothing to give to our students. And so, I don't know, like, it's okay to ask for help. If you're out there and you're listening, like, it's okay to not know, but just know, like, do your best. Reach out to any of us here at Chaotic Harmony. Like, we'd be more than happy to email and just try to help you through whatever it is you're working through. And
this is judgment-free zone.
Absolutely. We've probably made that mistake, or we've made worse mistakes. My first year of teaching, I was trying to lecture kindergartners on how to read the staff. And I look at that, I'm like, oh, past Mark, you're so dumb. But at that point, that's what I knew. And, and I've grown as an educator, and I know I still have many things to learn, and many tricks and many things and ways to be better as a musician, but it's okay.
I also think if we were to teach our students that this is a judge-free zone, the music classroom that we enter in, we should hold the same standard to ourselves.
Totally.
Like, hey, we are also music students. We are educators, but we're still students as well. We should not think that we're in a judge-free zone. We should extend ourselves out.
I recently started trying to learn a Wynton Marsalis solo on my trumpet, and it's in C sharp major. And
that's brave.
When you forget how to play B sharp for a quick second, it's humbling. But sitting there, I'm like, all right, my metronome's set for 50 beats per minute, but that's where I need to be to get this lick. So I'm gonna put it at 50, and it's gonna be okay for if that's all I get to today. You know what? That's fine. And tomorrow maybe it'll be 55. Until I get to the 110 where this Sister Cheryl solo is. One day I'll have it. Wow. It's not today, but yeah, I just think that's great. And Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing.
Mark,
Please.
this was like beautifully meta, like this whole conversation.
I know.
I'm like in this reflective state, and
Definitely.
like
I should get the singing bowl out.
Ooh, yes. But I also want to like give you some props, Mark. Like you're
Yes.
you're such a great just like conversationalist, like helping people reflect on themselves. And I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Namaste.
Namaste. We're going to go ahead and make kind of a hard transition into our Spiccato section. And I believe Miss Crystal has a lovely item that she would love to share with you.
I found this at the dollar store around Valentine's Day. It is a giant bracelet-sized plastic diamond ring.
That's a giant ring.
Isn't that awesome? I saw it and it was in a package and it said jumbo diamond ring, and I said, yes, it is.
It's a little bit smaller than my wife's engagement ring.
Oh, is it now? And it was too good of a prop to pass up. So
Yeah, I think I just need to put this on so people stop asking me when I'm getting married. It happened, guys.
Yeah.
Summer break.
Look at my hand. Boom!
Could see that thing a while away. Isn't it fun?
How
would you use that in the music room?
Would you use that in the music room? You know what I'm thinking?
Do say.
Is you give one student the ring and they come to the front of the class, and the ring is like the all-powerful ring that controls all the scarves that the other students have. And so wherever the ring goes, the scarves have to follow.
I like that.
I love that.
I think one person gets the ring and becomes obsessed with it. And that
And they have to take it to a volcano?
That's the goal. I'm not putting it on, but yeah. So,
I love that. Zoe?
Oh, well, just adding on to our Lord of the Rings analogy, then we move into Drue's volcano arrangement.
Yes, please.
Ooh, I like.
Ooh.
Which was
level
that?
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Volume 2.
Drue
Bullington.
Thanks, Drew. Shout
Thank you,
out to
Drew.
I like it. Okay, so I use this to Bobby McFerrin's Hush Little Baby.
Oh,
With Yo-Yo Ma.
perfect.
And we pass around the circle in steady beat. Try to keep a steady beat. Try to keep a steady beat. Try to keep a steady beat. And he comes in, hush little baby, don't say a word. Right? No, you gotta keep it going. There you go. And then when it gets to a person, it's like musical chairs. Oh, Bobby McFerrin, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah. So, it's musical chair style. And when I pause it, whoever has the diamond ring has to do a dance move that we all copy.
Oh,
yeah.
I love
Okay.
that.
It was really fun. Yeah.
I like.
So
Also, I've used that song as
Love it.
Yeah, like body percussion. I think there's like I don't know if it's
Well-
from Spotlight or something.
like you can Keith Terry it, you know.
Come on, Keith Terry.
You know. I know. Well, that's because you didn't come to the
That's
workshop.
in the workshops, bro.
I was sick.
Doesn't matter.
Too bad.
I was crying.
Yeah, it's okay. But anyway, yeah, that's a fun one. One of my favorite games to play is just to go peruse the aisles of the dollar store.
That's cool.
Yep. Like, how can I use this in music class?
Veteran teacher tip. Go spend $1.
Poor teacher tip. Title I school, no materials, teacher
Veteran poor teacher tip.
Yeah.
Go to the dollar store. All right. Well, thank you, Crystal. That's
Got it.
a beautiful ring.
Thanks.
I wonder what the grade on that diamond is. I'll take it to my guy. I think we have a round.
Round of the week.
Miss Zoe.
Yes, please.
Or Miss Kumagai.
Let's sing Donkeys and Carrots.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a traditional tune, and you can. Well, I looked it up recently. There's no. I couldn't find a composer to attribute it to. So
Folk.
Okay.
folk, yeah. So the fun thing about this one is you can make up your own lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
So we can start off with donkeys
Yeah,
and
start with the
carrots.
donkeys, yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Why not?
Alright. Should we just sing it through?
Let's just sing it
Well,
through, yeah.
Okay,
Do it.
Donkeys are in love with carrots. Carrots aren't in love at all.
Hee-haw, hee-haw, listen to that loving call.
My students' favorite version is cell phones. People are in love with cell phones.
Cell phones aren't
Beep,
in love.
boop, beep,
Oh,
boop.
that's
Yeah, and
funny.
you can like do the little robot.
You
while
come
do
up
that.
with who is in love with what inanimate object.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for explaining
That's fun. Yeah.
One thing that I like to do with that, because my school also does that, actually, the students often choose their teacher.
that. Oh.
Yeah, so like
Who is
Yeah.
Mr. Seligman in love with?
it has to be an inanimate object. So not who, what.
What is Mr. Seligman in love with?
So like Mr. Marcus is in love with coffee. I think coffee's not in love at all. And then something he always says before he lets the kids go is, "Get out of my house." It's a little, tongue-in-cheek joke.
Cute.
So
That's funny.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the person or animal, then the inanimate object, and then the sound they make.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So which
Yeah.
one are we gonna do?
Very cute. All right.
Cool.
So,
Cell phone?
Should we sing it as round?
People in
yeah,
cell phones?
sing it. No, just sing it as a round.
Donkeys. Okay. You want to do 4
Donkeys.
part rounds?
Yeah,
Go.
do it.
Okay. What's our...
So together and then.
Oh, together and then 4 parts.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay.
Donkeys are in love with carrots. Carrots aren't in love at all.
Hee-haw, hee-haw, listen to that loving call.
Donkeys are in love with carrots.
Donkeys are in love with carrots. Carrots aren't in love with carrots.
Donkeys are in love with carrots. Carrots aren't in love at all. Hee-haw, hee-haw, listen to that loving call.
Cool. Thanks, Zoe.
That was delightful.
That was. Quick, John, where can people find you in your things at?
My things. You can find me on the Twitterverse at Mr. Seligman. That's MrSeligman.
Find me on Twitter at Ms. Kumagai.
Find me on Twitter at Finny Vappa and at crystalpridmore.com.
Excellent. And you can find me at Mr. Keehmer on the Twitterverse. Thank you so much for listening to Chaotic Harmony. We hope that you just feel that you're not alone. And so we just thank you, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.
The Chaotic Harmony podcast is a joint project between Crystal Pridmore, Jonathan Seligman, Zoe Kumagai, and Marc Keehmer. You can find us online at chaoticharmonyclassroom.com. You can email us at chaoticharmonyclassroom@gmail.com and let us know what you think. Give us feedback about what you would like to hear in future episodes. We're on all the socials. Find us on facebook.com/chaoticharmonyclassroom. You can find us on Twitter at @CHClassroom, Instagram at Chaotic Harmony Classroom, and you can even find our episodes on YouTube. Chaotic Harmony is the name of our channel. Special thanks to Brian Pridmore for his help with production and equipment. www.pridmoria.com.